days ago, and those even trending right now, and maybe those that will trend in coming days. One of those big stories in the country has to be moves made by the federal government, to rejig the aviation sector. And so the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, a few days ago directed airlines and companies operating in the airports to move to the new terminal. That's the Murtala Mohammed International Airport Terminal 2, constructed by the Chinese company, as the old terminal will be shut down for repairs from the 1st of October. Now, this is as he suspended the Nigeria Air projects, the concession project, and other contracts, stressing that he owes it to the government and to Nigerians to give honest assessment. The minister said the concession and national carrier will be suspended until he briefs the president. He also said that Murtala Mohammed International Airport, as mentioned, will be shut down from October 1 for total maintenance work at the airport. And this is something we need to talk about, right? We've got in the building Dr. Alex NWUBA, President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria, here to discuss this beautiful Thursday morning. Good morning to you, Dr. Alex. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here once again. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on the show this morning. All right, for some reason I'm not sure why exactly I can't hear you clearly, so you want to say good morning again?
Yes, it's good morning again, and thank you for having me on the show.
Fantastic. That was my fault. Pardon me. All right, you're welcome. Just very quickly, before we get to this conversation, right, I'm not sure that we've gotten your thoughts on the appointment of Festus Keyamo as the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development. You probably want to mention or just say how you feel about that. Usually, for political appointment like this, we like to talk about having round pegs in round holes, or square pegs, where they should belong, and the rest. But what's your take about his appointments and the steps he's taken so far?
Well, everybody, sometimes we think that we need to appoint an aviation professional to run the aviation industry, and in this case we've appointed a lawyer. So it's not a bad appointment. He's up to a good start. He's taking walks around the industry facilities. He's made quick decisions about what needs to be done, and no matter what business you're in, we always go to the lawyers when there's a problem. And there is a problem in the aviation sector, so we have a lawyer to attend to these matters.
Okay. I suppose that says all that you think about that. So let's talk about this. One of his, I think it was the same day he made that tour around a facility that he said, and I made this decision. First, I know the last time you were here, you spoke about the Nigeria Air project. Well, he's since suspended that and said we need to look at the contract signed. We need to do an audit of the entire process and then be honest with ourselves about this. Do you think that is a good start for Festus Keyamo?
Let's start with again that he's a lawyer, and so he's intelligent enough to know that if there's a contract signed, he can't just on his own make a unilateral decision to put a stop to it. Especially in view of the fact that the Nigerian government only owns 5%, so he's a 5% shareholder. But the fact that he, as a lawyer who's been briefed a few days into the administration, can make this decision about stopping the project points to the point we've always made, that Nigeria Air is a farce. And so when a 5% shareholder can say we'll put a stop to it, and 95% can't say, well, that's okay, you can walk away from the table, we have the majority stake, we're going to continue with this project because it's viable, and that doesn't happen, it tells you that there was really no real Nigeria Air. And of course, remember, at the very tail end of the last administration, we saw the airplane come one day, and the next day it disappeared into thin air. So there again was no real Nigeria Air, and he's investigating that. He'll make recommendations to the president as whether it is appropriate to continue or to just forgo that and do the right thing. And that's what we've been calling for as an industry, that the government do the right thing.
Doctor, some people would disagree with you on that. The reason is because Festus Keyamo was a member of the previous administration. He sat within the Federal Executive Council meeting that took the decision for floating of the Nigerian Airways. So for him to come around now to say that there are discrepancies within the process leading to that appears to be something is not really just adding up. Don't you think so?
And you use the most important words in your very last statement. Something isn't adding up.
Yeah,
it smells like a fish, but it's an octopus. Let me explain what I mean by that. Very simply. He may have sat in that room with everybody else having these discussions, but it really wasn't his business. The way Nigeria works is the president wants to do something and everybody just says yes. And that's why we had failure upon about policy that really threw bad eggs at the face of the APC. So clearly he may have been sitting in that room, he may have had his views about the matter, and he didn't express them because it wasn't really his responsibility, even though he's a voice in the Federal Executive Council. Now, because he sat in that very room and he can come out now that he's minister and say, I own only 5%, but I'm putting a stop onto this until I do a proper investigation. What investigation from your point of view? He sat in the room, he had all the facts, or he didn't have all the facts. Maybe these decisions weren't made at the Federal Executive Council. Maybe they were made unilaterally by the minister. So let the investigation take place, and it will look to you, like I said from the beginning, it smells like a fish, but it's an elephant.
Alrighty then, let's go to another decision already taken by the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, which has now directed airlines and companies operating in the airports to move to the new terminal, the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, constructed by the Chinese company, as the old terminal now will be shut down for repairs from October 1. How would this affect businesses in your view?
Well, it's rather unfortunate that it will have some negative effects on consumers, because you won't be able to walk from the building into the aircraft. You'd have to be bussed to the aircraft, but that's not unusual. Most of us that travel abroad know that when we go to the UK, we take a bus. When we go to Dubai, they give us the furthest parking point, and the bus ride is for 20 to 40 minutes to the terminal. So it's not unusual, but it's unfortunate. But it's another excellent decision by the minister, because we've been talking about the problem of the old terminal. You get out of the airplane, you're sweating. You know, you've come out of a long flight, maybe in the winter time, wearing a winter coat. You walk into this building that is not air conditioned, and it's the gateway to Nigeria. What story is that telling? You're very uncomfortable. You go to get your bags. It takes you 2 hours to get your bags because the conveyor is not working. The ACs are not working. The conveyors are not working. The room is hot. The guys are waiting for you on arrival, asking you, what did you bring for me? All of those things. So I mean, we want to fix it. We've all asked as Nigerians, given our experience going in and out of that airport, that we want to fix it. And in the past, what we've done is patchwork. We fix one AC, we fix some plumbing, we fix a toilet, we fix this, we fix that, but we never actually, for all these years, get that problem done. And so his position is clearly, let's just shut this down once and for all, get it fixed, let's move everybody to that new terminal. It may not be the best, but you know, getting to the best sometimes requires a bumpy road.
Perhaps we look at another area relating to safety, transparency in the aviation industry. Just some days ago, precisely, I think on the 1st or 2nd of this month, the people from the ICAO, that's the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, visited the aviation minister, and they were talking about carrying out, executing a comprehensive audit, you know, of the airports that we have in Nigeria. And then the minister was, you know, quoted to have said that Nigeria is fully aware that ensuring safe, secure, efficient, and environmentally friendly civil aviation system with modern and adequate infrastructure, he says, it requires a properly funded and autonomous civil aviation authority and an independent National Safety Investigation Bureau, together with well-established aviation service providers. And we see that just some weeks ago, a pilot aircraft, training aircraft, you know, crashed in Ikeja. Perhaps you might want to, you know, tell us what you feel or what you expect the ICAO team to be doing? What are they supposed to be looking out for? And how does the ministry, or how should the ministry react? Should there be anything hidden? Because sometimes when your regulator is coming, you tend to hide some things from them. And these are human lives at stake. Maybe you want to lend your voice to that.
Well, the ICAO audit is a regular audit.
Right.
All ICAO members are audited regularly for conformance to ICAO standards, the International Civil Aviation Authority. And the minister's point is very clear. One of those standards is the independence of the Safety Investigation Bureau, as well as the Civil Aviation Regulatory Authority, in our case, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. And we've had that for a very long time. The challenge we had previously was the total and absolute independence of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and the Safety Investigation Bureau. And I was part of the work done around reforming the regulations, and a law was put into place in the last administration to ensure the full and complete autonomy of these two agencies. In the case of the Safety Investigation Bureau, its role was expanded beyond the accident investigation in aviation to include accident investigation across all modes, whether by sea, by road, by everything else. So now, instead of being called the Accident Investigation Bureau under aviation, it's now called the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau. Whether it's a train accident, the train accident in Ikeja is being investigated with them. There's even a cooperation agreement with the Nigerian Military Institute. So we've had 2 air incidents by the Nigerian Air Force. They've signed, based on the MOU, they are working on investigating those incidents. And so that expanded role, though independent, is key to ensuring that we're in conformance with not just the regulations of the Civil Aviation Authority, but other transportation regulatory agencies. We cannot hide anything. They have a template by which they go by, and their job is to dig up any issues. And what we have done in the last few years is ensure that it may not look the best on the surface, but at the operational level, we are doing everything as possible to meet these standards. And year after year, event after event, Nigeria has passed these safety audits.
Interesting. Let's talk now about an agenda setting for the new minister. We have Festus Keyamo there, and like you mentioned, he's taking a few steps in the right direction to maybe fix things which were hitherto wrong in that sector. In any case, one of the counsel that has been given since his appointment is for him to review the nation's bilateral air service agreements, that's BASAs, to make them more mutually beneficial. But that's one that was given by some stakeholders in the industry. From your point of view, where you're standing and some of the things you've seen in your experience over time, over the years, some of the complaints you've made, what would you like to see the minister do, steps you would like to see him take, maybe as a matter of urgency?
Well, we can start with that BASA, and that goes back to the earlier conversation I had with you, that now we have a minister that's a lawyer. So we're not going to go, even though in the past we've taken lawyers, we've taken people from foreign affairs to go negotiate these things, but we know on one level we haven't done the best we can for ourselves, and another level the enforcement has been near zero. As we know, Emirates makes multiple flights into Nigeria daily, not just to Lagos but to Abuja as well. Lufthansa comes to Lagos, goes to Port Harcourt. British Airways comes to Lagos, goes to Abuja. Virgin comes to Lagos, but no Nigerian carrier can go to Dubai or the UK because of the difficulties imposed by those countries, despite the fact that the word is bilateral, not unilateral agreement. It wasn't an agreement for one party. It was an agreement to benefit both parties, and there are provisions within these agreement structures to go beyond the fact that, well, if you don't even have an airplane to operate with, I'll give you capacity, and that's what is done. Let me give you an interesting story around that. During the Abacha regime, the UK made the unilateral decision to make a finding on the Nigerian aircraft that led to the cancellation of Nigerian carriers to the UK, and so only the UK was coming to Nigeria. Nigerians balked at it, and we had the kind of leadership then that was able to take very decisive situations. And guess what Nigeria did? Nigeria allowed the British Airways flight to take off from the UK, and just as it was entering Nigeria space, banned UK carriers from coming to Nigeria. In the very same way they took steps against us. That's what you call definite definitive leadership, the kind of leadership we have to address issues like we faced with the UAE, where they come here so many times and would not let airpeace go to Dubai, and when they are forced to do that, they send them to a lesser airport. And so what happened subsequently, after Abacha took that step, the UK says, okay, you don't have the equipment that meets these requirements, but we'll give you seats on British Airways, that's commercial arrangement, that would allow you to sell those seats, and they gave it to us at no cost because they wanted to access our market, one of the most important, one of the most viable, one of the most profitable markets in the world, and we throw it to the wind and let others take it. During my last show, we talked about the over $800 million we are owing to foreign carriers. We are owing that money because they come here and take people and have to take their money back. They've taken the capacity from us to go there and make that money for our own economy. And that's why the bilateral air service agreement review, as well as new agreements that will be entered and modified by a lawyer in this case, will be more suited to the needs of our economy. Beyond that, he's dealing with the airport issue so that we don't just talk about, oh, when you go into Accra, what a beautiful airport, they play music, it's nice, it's fresh, it's refreshing, and we are the giant of Africa. We are addressing that now with the policy position we've taken. We've taken that with airports. We're doing a second runway in Abuja, which is not a priority at this time. He should have stopped it, but again, maybe he couldn't stop it, unlike the Nigeria Air project. We need our carriers to be able to go abroad, whether as a national carrier in the right format or flag carriers where current airlines are designated and equipped with the resources to go to these markets and be competitive. But we cannot do what Civica did last time, which is open our market to a foreign carrier to take and achieve the same problems we have that we were trying to address, but do it in an underhanded way. If you recall, we were told Ethiopian Airways owned 49% of the national carrier. So therefore, Ethiopia was the minority shareholder. The combination of the Nigerian government's share and Nigerian shareholders made us the majority. Then it's further disclosed now, subsequently, after the deal should have been done, that there's a 3% that was given to an Ethiopian who is an investment advisor. So you have a 3% with an Ethiopian, 49% with Ethiopian Airlines, who is the majority shareholder. And we're talking of bilaterals that favor us. We already gave away our national pride to a foreign government. Ethiopian Airlines is not a private airline. It's an airline owned by the government of Ethiopia. So again, we couldn't. That's why you saw me fight it on television, on the radio, and everywhere, and I went straight at the point and I said Nigeria shouldn't be doing this. So these kinds of things, we already see good moves by the minister. He's getting good advice. We need execution.
Because we've got to go and beat Dr. Alex NWUBA. We've been speaking, by the way, with Dr. Alex NWUBA. Is the President Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria. Well, how relevant is the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority in the grand scheme of things in terms of operations in the sector? And I say this because one of the counsels given when the minister was appointed is to ensure that it doesn't interfere with the activities of the authority. And someone once said that, well, whoever the president chooses to be the minister is not so concerned with that, but the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority is who we should pay a lot of attention to. How relevant is that, authority to the activities in this sector, and how much would you say how much advocacy or voice would you lend to these thoughts that the minister shouldn't interfere?
Well, the basic standard on a global basis is the total and absolute independence of the regulator. So the idea is that the regulator is the most equipped to make decisions about the industry. Nobody is more important than the regulator. It's like the policeman of the industry. But beyond the policeman, he's also an advocate and a guide within the industry. He makes the regulations around the industry. He conducts surveillance of the industry. He does certification of the carriers. And so when you have the minister interfere in that process, the interference is usually political, you understand, not about industry standards. And the idea behind maintaining safety is the maintenance of standards. So the key function of the regulator is the maintenance of standards, even though we use the word regulator, is the maintenance of standards. And so the key man in the industry is obviously the Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority. But within the Director General, there are directorates, there are people in safety, there are people in economic regulation. So everything that needs to be addressed around the industry industry is addressed around the Civil Aviation Authority. And that is the party that the International Civil Aviation Organization interacts with, not directly with the ministry. The ministry has a function to play on a policy level, but not in the operation and the standards and the way the industry is conducted. So that is why he's the key man around that process.
All right. Yeah. Maybe one last thought before we go.
Well, perhaps we look at the issue of airlines now that have been suspended. Some airlines have been, some flights of, we don't want to mention names, have been, suspended. Maybe you want to lend your voice to how airlines, as a leader in that sector, how they can fare better, maintaining standards. We talk about standards, talk about safety, because my major concern really is these are human lives. So if the regulator, NCAA, is taking steps to, suspend these licenses or suspend these airlines due to breach of certain regulatory procedure, perhaps you want to speak to your colleagues in that industry on how to fare better.
Well, again, you answered that question with the use of the word standards and regulation. The job of the civil aviation regulator is to ensure the conformance and maintenance of standards in order to ensure the highest level of safety.
Absolutely.
And so when we see them suspend one or two airlines, it indicates that they're actually doing their job. Although there are many weaknesses within the organization that needs deepened reform. So as we ask that the government pull away from interference in the job of the regulatory authority, we also ask the regulatory authority to build up and build more robustness in its capacity to function within the role it's assigned. But we're clearly seeing, we haven't had incidents for over a decade. We haven't, when I say accidents, we have no loss of life in a number of decades. Nothing is 100% perfect, including your watch. You can skip a second unless it's linked to the atomic clock, and so these things happen. So the idea is we've seen them take action indicate before an accident, and so that's indicative that they're on the job with regards to maintenance of standards and safety. But what we ask further is for them to develop additional robustness in their capacity to perform, to continue to ensure the safety record we've managed to maintain for some time now.
Sorry, additional robust, because of our time,
yes.
Maybe you just want to touch a little bit. How do you mean, what do you mean by additional robustness?
Correct, yes. Robustness simply means you need to get more experts into the system. You need to get more of these people that are retiring from the industry with vast experience into the system, in the licensing, in safety management, in audits, etc. Because there seems to be a bit of a gap in that as appears in that industry or appears from that organization. So while they are able to do the job optimally at this point, we believe that more investment now from the federal government and itself must go into the Civil Aviation Regulatory Authority so that they are able to hire more people to get the job done more effectively.
We've got to go now. I'd just like to get your final thoughts. And well, I know, because of course I've been following and monitoring the activities personally, and so I'd just like to know what the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria is doing to better the lot of members of the association. I know that you've been here and there in these past few weeks, doing this and that. You want to very quickly talk about that in about 30 seconds?
I do a dual function. I am in the aviation sector. I'm also in the tourism sector. So I've been involved in enhancing the revenue of the state. I'm also on the National Air Cargo, which is to build capacity for exports from Nigerian market. So I'm wearing a lot of hats at the moment, and all of these are very tasking, and that's why we've tried to do this show for 3 weeks now and not found the time to do that, but we managed to squeeze it, and I'm always glad to be on Law FM because you have a very deep followership that are very interested in things that go on. But I think that basically as an industry, for us, AOPA is more focused on general aviation. And so what we've done in Nigeria is focus on the airline business rather than on the general aviation side. And the reality of it is that you can't have airlines without general aviation, because you need a place to train pilots, you need a place to train engineers, you need a place for people to learn fueling, to learn the basics of aviation. And that's the foundation of the industry. And we've continued to push the top. And so we have what we talk about pilot gaps around the world. So when America America has pilot gaps, UAE has pilot gaps, China has pilot gaps. What happens? We continue to see the Jacqua syndrome. So we should continue to create capacity. We cannot stop human mobility as we've seen in the medical field, but if we continue to bring on board a stream of individuals, we'll continue to have the capacity without having to go outside of our markets to create employment opportunities. And that's the key focus for me.
Dr. Alex NWUBA, President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria, and indeed, like he said, wears the hearts, many others precisely. I want to especially thank you for being on the program today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Like you mentioned, it's been a few weeks we've been trying to get this done, but thank you for coming today. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
All right, that's the show today. What a way to close. We indeed have had a good conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed the show myself. Hope you did, and thanks for making the team here a part of your Thursday morning. Let's do this again 9 o'clock tomorrow. In the meantime, keep it locked here on FM 103.9. Coming up next would be Women's Web. Of course, a whole lot will be discussed, and you want to learn and have a good time on the radio as well. Kingsley Boss is my name.
Felix Uzoma is my name.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.